Get it? Danger?
You are Queen Chosen, soldier. Greatness awaits you.
The Old Blood has been released in Warframe, and I agree with Mogamu. This is a step in the right direction. DE is pushing the limits of the difficulty, and it's a needed advancement to match the power creep in Warframe. As a veteran player with 1900 hours in the game, all of the waybounds unlocked, an array of fully leveled arcanes, prime mods, and ribbons, I need some endgame content. When I look at my loadout screen in Warframe, it's like looking at a garage full of really fast cars and having nowhere to drive them. People have argued that if I want a challenge in the game, that I should play without mods. But that's a poor excuse of a solution in my opinion, because that's like telling me to drive my really fast car while having the parking brake engaged. That's boring. That's not what I got it for. I got it so I can put it to its limits. And it creates a new problem. If I bring something that's not meta, I'll just be following my teammates as they cut through the enemies like a hot knife through butter. I'd be useless. What I've been needing in Warframe is challenging content. Content that challenges someone who's reached a high level of proficiency with almost all aspects of the game, and who has put together some of the strongest builds possible in the game. I need content that warrants my hero's ability to dish out millions of damage in a matter of seconds. I need content that warrants me bringing my Oberon with an Ack and Brunt and tanking for my teammates. Now we're not quite there yet with the Old Blood, but we're making progress in the right direction. When a Nox gets enthralled, he doesn't get deleted with the push of a button. He actually survives long enough to slow the player down. When a squishy character draws aggro from a bunch of level 100 enemies, they can go down pretty fast if someone else isn't there to support them. I love these opportunities to bring my most powerful builds and engage in actually meaningful teamwork. But there's a problem. A lot of the players in the Warframe community hate being slowed down. They treat the game like there's this mysterious thing at the end of the tunnel and they're racing towards it as fast as possible, and any speed bump along the way pisses them off. Well, let me tell you, it's the journey, not the destination. DE Steve even said in a stream that he was thinking about intrinsic motivation versus extrinsic motivation, which is to say there's a difference between doing something because you enjoy doing it or doing it because you have to in order to get something you want. Most of these nagging Nancys in the community seem to struggle with finding intrinsic motivation and are hardwired to operate on extrinsic motivation. So they beg, plead, bitch and complain that their rewards are too hard to obtain, the candy isn't sweet enough, that the wrapper is too inconvenient to take off, like they want a needle stuck into their arm so they can get that reptilian trickle of reward shot straight into their veins as easily as possible. For them, even chewing their candy is too much work. When you've reached a point in Warframe where you have so much power that you're like Thanos or like Dr. Manhattan, and you can go into a room, snap your fingers, and delete everything off the map, will you be satisfied? Remember the days of the Game Shark? Yeah, Game Sharks were cool. I remember when I was a youngling, and I used Game Shark cheat codes to unlock infinite power to my favorite video games. Here's what I learned in the process. Having all of that power handed to me on a silver platter was fun, for about 5 minutes. Then it got boring pretty fast. Mogamu said in his video that he hopes DE pushes through all the criticisms and negative feedback on this Old Blood update, and I couldn't agree with him more. I know this sounds harsh, but when I see some of the complaints on the Warframe forums and subreddit, especially the backlash that I get when I suggest that DE cranks up the difficulty of the game, these people sound like whiny little children. I can't one-shot this guy in the head anymore. You guys took away my nuke. This boss is too hard. As the saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And here we are in 2019, where Warframe has a clear and obvious power creep problem. I have zero apologies for making fun of these nagging Nancys. They are a contributing factor to the stale endgame that has been prevalent in Warframe for the past year. And yes, I am an asshole sometimes, but there's an element of truth to what I'm saying, isn't there? Anyway, let's move on to the subject of the Old Blood update, specifically the sweeping changes to melee. These are great changes. Prior to this update, we had huge spikes in power that would overshadow all the other melee weapons. For example, the Redeemer Prime with Condition Overload, the Memeing Strike Atarax, the Grand Prime with its base damage balance for a Mastery Rank 14 weapon, and its ridiculous 1.44 Riven disposition, which is balanced for something far less powerful. I personally have exploited the shit out of the Grand Prime since it was released. I'm honestly surprised it wasn't nerfed 6 months ago. This thing can hit for 3 million damage. That's a lot of damage. At that point, the game becomes trivial. Now, I've liked having these ultra powerful options as a fallback plan when things get difficult in the game, but the problem is when things are easy and you want to bring an off-meta build that takes, 2 seconds to kill a guy, well, guess what? You'll spend the entire mission chasing after that guy using one of those overpowered builds as he deletes room after room before you can even touch the enemies. At that point, Warframe becomes a racing game. Who can make it to the finish line the fastest with the highest damage? Well, if you're not running the hottest 2019 meta build, you're going to be eating everybody else's dust. You're going to have a boring time while someone else on the team trivializes the content. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the melee changes. These changes truly are great. Instead of having these ridiculous, overpowered outlier melee weapons that overshadow everything else, we have a more even distribution of power. It even seems like DE has buffed up the baseline, so now more melee weapons than ever are viable, and it even seems like players who don't have access to fully ranked prime mods or arcanes can do respectable damage now too. I support this. The new combo system is more simple and consistent. If you want crowd control or to close the distance, hold down the right mouse button. If you want to just straight up do damage, spam E without pressing anything else. Boom, you've learned the new system. I get the impression that the new melee system is easy to learn, hard to master. And that's the kind of Warframe that I want to play. So I'll repeat it again. Easy to learn, hard to master. That is good game design. Okay, let's move on to the next subject, the Ember rework. Initially, I thought Ember was too energy hungry, but I figured out that it's just a balancing act between damage and tankiness. If you want to have both extreme tankiness and extreme damage, well, you're going to have to pay a price, and that price is a lot of energy. Again, I think it's good game design. It's designed in such a way where you have to balance damage output, tankiness, and energy. You can't have all of it at once, but she's flexible where you can shift the balance at will within a matter of seconds. She seems great, and I'm glad DE hasn't tweaked her yet in response to the player feedback because, of course, in typical fashion, there's been an immediate backlash from players calling for buffs to Ember before they've even learned how to play her. In regards to Vauban and Grendel, or Vauban or whatever, I don't know. I haven't played them yet. Okay, let's get to the final subject. The new Lich system. It's grindy. Yeah, it's a little too grindy in my opinion. The rewards seem fine to me. The new ephemera look beautiful, and that incentivizes me to engage with this content. I want those ephemera, more than I want the Kuva weapons. In regards to the new Kuva weapons, I'm not particularly excited about them. I think there's a little bit too much RNG in this system, particularly with the elemental rolls on the weapons, but it's not the end of the world. The most important thing to me is that DE has made a step in the direction of adding something a little more challenging for veterans to explore, and I welcome the challenge. Oh yeah, I forgot something. They're changing the way ribbons work. Instead of giving the same ribbon disposition to all variants of a weapon, like for example both the Gram and the Gram Prime, every variant will have its own ribbon disposition. This is the way the system should have worked in the first place, in my opinion. It's a welcome change, and I think it will help dramatically in distributing the power level of all the weapons in the game, instead of creating these ridiculous outliers like the Gram Prime. Anyway, that's all from me. I know some people are going to be upset because I acted like a dick when I was talking about the whiny, childish complainers on the forums and the subreddit, but if you don't like what I said, go suck a lemon. Thanks for watching. See you next time.